Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into a career that might seem pretty self-explanatory at first. Land planning. Like you hear that and you think, okay, maps, planning where things go.
Right. Seems pretty straightforward.
Exactly. But as we dug into RoleCatcher's career guide on this one, let me tell you, it's way more than just drawing lines on a map.
It really is. It's a fascinating blend of, well, you've got your data analysis, you've got zoning regulations, environmental law.
Oh yeah, those zoning laws. I'll be honest, I used to just kind of skim over those sections. Never really thought about them too much.
Yeah, it's not exactly light reading, right?
Hmm.
But it's actually really important. How we avoid ending up with, like, a factory right next door to a preschool.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Keeps
Okay.
things ordered. I mean, it makes sense that land planners would have to be on top of all that.
They're the ones making sure those regulations actually create a community that works for everyone.
You know, it's funny because when I think land planner, I think, well, land, like the physical space. But this guide emphasized something I hadn't really considered. Community dynamics.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where the planning part gets really interesting.
Yeah. It's not just about, like, what looks good on paper, is it?
Not at all. A good land planner has to be like part detective, part artist, part diplomat.
Diplomat. That's an interesting way to put it. Why diplomat?
Think about it. They're constantly working with like architects, engineers, developers, government officials, and of course the people who live in these communities.
That's a lot of different perspectives.
And personalities, which is probably why the RoleCatcher guide puts such a big emphasis on communication skills. Like they even highlight active listening as a key skill.
Which, I mean, when you put it like that, it makes total sense.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about having the technical know-how.
Yeah.
You got to be able to really hear what everyone's needs and concerns are. So it sounds like being a land planner needs serious people skills on top of all that technical knowledge we talked about. But, okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What's the day-to-day actually look like? And what about the, the good, the bad, and the ugly of this career path? The RoleCatcher guide didn't exactly shy away from any of that.
No, they didn't. They were pretty upfront about both the pros and the cons. On the plus side, they highlight the earning potential, which is, well, always nice.
Definitely.
And there's a ton of variety in the projects you could be working on, too. Like one day you might be designing a park, and the next you could be tackling a huge development project.
You could really have a hand in shaping how a community grows and changes. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely a cool factor there. But, and this is where that diplomat thing comes back in, imagine trying to balance the needs of, say, a developer who wants to maximize their profit.
Right. Build, build, build.
Exactly. With the concerns of, residents who are worried about things like increased traffic or losing green space.
It's like you're walking a tightrope sometimes.
Totally. And that's the kind of conflict that land planners are dealing with all the time. Finding those win-win solutions, if they exist, can be a real challenge.
Wow, yeah, I'm starting to see how all those community dynamics we talked about earlier can get really complex really fast.
Definitely not a job for someone who shies away from a challenge. But that being said, the guide also talks about how those challenges are part of what makes this career so rewarding. They give this great example of a land planner who helped to revitalize a rundown downtown area. And it wasn't just about the economics of it, even though that was part of it, but it was also about how it brought the community together, gave them a sense of pride in their town.
That's the kind of impact that really makes a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, it's about creating a place where people want to be, want to live, want to work.
I love that. It reminds me of something I read in the guide. It was something like land planners don't just build structures. They build communities.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and thinking, this is it. This is what I want to do. What would you say are some concrete steps they can take to actually get into this field?
Yeah, so someone's hearing us talk about all of this and they're hooked. What's their first move?
Well, the guide really stressed hands-on experience, like getting your hands dirty, not just reading about it.
Makes sense. So internships.
Definitely internships. That's a big one. Even if it's not the coolest sounding internship, you're going to learn so much just by being in that environment, seeing how things work in the real world.
Yeah, totally. Get your foot in the door. What about like volunteering for community planning projects? Would that be helpful?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The guide mentioned that too. It's a great way to, one, get some experience, but also two, start making those connections.
Networking. Because
Uh.
in any field, but especially one like this, who can make a big difference.
Speaking of which, we've got to talk about RoleCatcher's tools for job seekers. because I've been playing around with some of their stuff, and honestly, it's kind of mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah, they've got some really cool stuff. What have you been trying out?
Everything. But that RoleCatcher.capture plugin, that one's a game changer. You see a job posting anywhere online, and boom, one click, it's saved to your RoleCatcher account. No more, like, emailing links to yourself or trying to remember where you saw something.
And then there's that skills analysis tool. Have you used that one yet?
Oh, yeah. You upload your resume, and it tells you how well it matches up with the specific job description. So helpful, especially for a field like this where it's so competitive.
For sure, because you're not just competing with other people at that point. You're competing with those automated systems that a lot of companies are using now.
Ugh, don't even get me started on those things. But that's something the RoleCatcher actually addresses too, which I appreciate. They give you tips on how to, like, optimize your application so that it actually gets seen by human.
It's like they're saying, we see you job seekers, we know what you're up against.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here today. We talked about zoning laws, community dynamics, the importance of being a good listener. It's a lot more to being a land planner than I think either of us realized.
Way more than just maps and pretty drawings, that's for sure. It's about shaping the places where we live, work, play.
And finding ways to do it that work for everyone, or at least as many people as possible.
And for the planet, too. Let's not forget about sustainability. That's a huge part of land planning these days, finding that balance between what we need now and what we'll need in the future.
Which, now that you mention it, that's something we didn't really dive into today, but a whole other layer of complexity to think about. What if, like, the most sustainable choice isn't the most profitable one? What if it means making some tough decisions about how we use our resources?
Really interesting questions to consider.
It's all connected, isn't it? The choices that land planners make, they impact all of us, whether we realize it or not. So the next time you're walking through your city, take a look around and think about all the planning and honestly, the diplomacy that went into creating that space. And who knows, maybe this deep dive has inspired a future land planner out there to help us build an even better tomorrow. Thanks for listening.